Welcome to Traction Ria's special online event, November 2022. My time flies. There's a little bit more than a month left in the year. Things always go fast. I almost feel like a broken record saying that, but things go fast. Next thing you know, the whole year has gone by, and what do you know? And here we are. And there's certainly been a lot going on and a lot that we've got to pay attention to. So, gang, I am very excited about tonight's meeting because there's been a lot going on, hasn't there? And it's finally gotten out there, right? The media is finally admitting that there's issues, that it wasn't transitory inflation, it's actually permanent inflation and bad inflation, and things are changing, and the economy is not great, and housing prices are changing, and they're dropping, and they're not moving fast, and, right? The sky is falling. That's what they always say. You know what I say? Good. Good. That's good for us creative real estate investors, because more opportunities open up now for us than when things are good, right? Everyone says they're good, and then people say, oh, the market's too good, I don't want to jump in. Then some people say, oh, the market's not doing good, I don't want to jump in. Other people say the market's flat, I don't want to jump in. Those people never want to jump in. But gang, whether you are starting to jump in, trying to jump in, want to jump in, or have jumped in a long time ago and are still going, this is the market that we've all been waiting for. Because this is when creativity gets to come out and play and have a good time. This is when creativity gets to come out, have a good time, and make you a lot of money, because motivated sellers will be more motivated than ever, and they will be more flexible than ever, and they will have less other options than ever. It's not going to be easy for them to just list it on the open market and expect 17 offers in the last 5 minutes and sell that thing for way over asking. Because that's what things have been like for the last few years, which in sometimes makes it a little bit difficult for us creative real estate investors. We don't just get to list it and watch it fly because, you know, people are buying houses like crazy. Now, people still need to buy houses. They still need to sell houses. The market still needs to function and exist because human beings are always changing, right? Everyone's getting older, having kids. Kids are getting older, leaving the house. People are getting ill. They're moving into town. They're moving out of town. They're getting jobs. They're losing jobs. They're going into program. Everything that creates a market is still happening. What's changing is the options for the person selling the house. They don't have that fast, easy option of just list it and watch it go. Now it's list it and watch it sit. Perfect. That's good for us as creative real estate investors, because we can come in, and once we know how to find those deals and then how to put those deals together. And that is exactly what I've got two awesome gentlemen speaking on tonight. How are you going to find those deals, and how are you going to creatively put offers together to understand where the money comes from? Because when you figure out where the money comes from, you'll figure out how to do deals now in today's market. So let me share a screen and talk to you about a bunch that's going on. Nice to see everyone on Zoom again. I love seeing everyone in person, but you know what? It's kind of, you know, because I'm old fashioned, but it's kind of nice to see everyone on Zoom too. It's kind of the new fashion, but it's nice. We have people here, hey, one way or the other. It's just nice to see you guys. So Traction RIA, DC, Tampa, Sarasota, and online. This would be the online, and we're replacing the DC meeting this month to be totally online. My name is Tom Zeeb. I am the president of Traction RIA. I was a member of this organization for many years before I was asked to take it over and run it as president, and that has been a proud day when that started, and ever since, because it's really nice to teach other people to do what I did. And it's really nice to have the group benefit you like the group benefited me, and that's the ability to get moving in your real estate business and get out of the day job and get moving in the right direction independently on your own. Now look, are you obligated to quit your job? No, but if you want to, you can. Not everyone wants to quit. Not everyone should quit. You know, if you're 2 years away from a pension, it's probably best to stick around. But on the other hand, if you want out, we can get you out. No matter when you want out, you should be planning for that anyway. So that's what Traction RIA likes to do with you, is teach you how to do exactly that. Real quick, because my attorney makes me do it. Since we're talking about making money in real estate investing, I have to give a disclaimer to you that there is no guarantee that you'll make money in real estate investing. You could lose money, but you shouldn't lose money. You should make money. That's the major difference, is learning what the heck you're doing. And that's what we are here for each and every month, teaching you the ins and outs of different ways of real estate investing. You stick with us for a year, you're going to get very cross-trained, and you're going to see all these different techniques, different exit strategies, different ways of finding them, different ways of making the deal, right? Different ways of everything will be perfect for you. And that's going to move you ahead real quick. So that's what we're after with it. Now, look, you found us somehow. You came into our traction world one way or the other. Probably maybe somebody told you about it. Maybe you saw a post on social media. You got an email that you liked and enjoyed. Well, I'll tell you what, go out there and spread the word. Share that with other people, because one of the really great ways for us to keep building the group and be able to help you meet more awesome people is to have awesome people that are already here bring in more awesome people, because birds of a feather flock together. So however you found us, share the emails, give it a thumbs up, tell people about the meetup group, whatever it takes. Just get up there, talk it up on social media. And you should be able to share your screen as well. So guys, look, Matt walked us through how to find an excellent way of finding deals, right? Driving for deals, or biking for deals, or jogging for deals, or strolling for deals, right? Whatever it takes. It's an excellent source, because you're out there, you're finding the properties, you're bringing them in. Now, when you got them by using Deal Machine, how are you going to put the deal together financially? What if you need money to do the flip? What if you need money to invest in a multi-unit? Where does all that come from? How do you put the money together? And particularly in a creative environment, the more and more creative environment that we're heading into. That's why I want to have Charlie Einsmann telling you all about how to put finance together the right way. Where do you find the money in this type of market? Right, Charlie? I think that's kind of an important topic for these days.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
You know, what a fantastic evening to have the two most important parts of this business, right? Number one is finding the deals. And then once you find the deals, well, how do you get the money? How do you get the money for the deals? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Tom, I think I got multiple, one participant could share at a time. I'm having a hard time sharing my screen.
Hang on a second. You are. I don't think anyone else is sharing. Let's see.
All right. Can you guys see?
It says it's starting up.
Okay.
I don't see anything yet, but it's starting up. Not sure why. Let's see here. Try again, Charlie. Let's see. Just hit your share screen button. Let's see what happens.
All righty.
There we go. Now I got it.
You guys got it?
I see it.
Okay. So let me start off by saying I've done this presentation a bunch of times, but what I had to do because of the market changes in the last 3 months, I revamped the entire presentation to talk to you guys about where and how to find the money during a market down cycle. And if you guys don't realize that we're in a market down cycle, we've been in one since September. Once the Fed started raising rates, it changed the entire marketplace as far as we're concerned, as far as residential real estate is concerned. Who am I? For you guys that don't know me, I'm Charlie Einsmann. I've got a variety of experience in residential real estate, over 25 years, of which 20 years of that is strictly investment real estate. I pretty much spent all my time managing assets. I either manage all of our loans that we do on the hard money side. I manage our rentals. I manage the fix and flip portfolio that we have. I manage some commercial properties. And so I do a lot of stuff. But primarily, we are a hard money lender. And the funny part of this whole presentation is that I probably won't even get to the section on hard money lending. So I will try and keep it pretty quick on some of my topics. And so what I want you guys to do is, I really don't see the chat. And so if you guys want to ask questions, Tom, if you don't mind reading off the questions, but what I want to do is at the end of each topic, then you guys can ask questions, because I've got about 7 or 8 topics I want to go over. Clear Sky Group, who are we? We've got 3 companies: Clear Sky Properties, LLC, Clear Sky Financial, and Clear Sky Holdings. Clear Sky Properties, we fix and flip about 2 or 3 houses a month. I primarily get my houses at the courthouse steps or from smaller wholesalers or, residential real estate agents who refer me deals. We have a rental portfolio of about 50 properties. They're all residential, townhouses, single family homes, 1 or 2 condos. We own an industrial parking lot where we park semi-truck trailers. It's about a 3-acre truck yard that we built and developed. Another one of my companies, Clear Sky Financial, is my hard money arm. Currently, we have about $35 million on the street, DC, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. We have a 506B fund, 506C fund for investors. And then Clear Sky Holdings, we primarily do tax lien certificate investing within that company. And we do own a tire shop and an auto body shop, as well as one of our commercial properties. So what we're going to do is talk about financing in this marketplace for investment properties. So what defines an investment property? It's either a fix and flip. We have financing for wholesalers. It's called a transactional funding. That's where you want to maybe hide your contract assignment fee. And so what you do is you bring us in there and we do maybe a 24-hour or a 12-hour loan. You buy it, double close, you sell it to your cash buyer, and then you're in and out. What that does is that shields the seller of the property that you're buying from your gigantic wholesale fee, and it helps keep the deal together. We've done a bunch of those. It's also buying and holds, condo conversions, bridge financing, and cross collateralization. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. It's not your standard, you're a retail buyer, you're buying through a realtor, you're getting a conventional loan, you're closing a deal. That's not what this is. This is totally strictly around investment properties. Okay, Bob Hope once said, a bank is a place that will lend you money only if you prove that you don't need it. So those that need money, how many of you guys have ever gotten turned down? And guys that don't need the money, banks actually call you. Now let's talk a little bit about the current economic environment. What are we in right now, guys? We're in a high inflation environment. The Feds have raised rates 4 times at what we call the magic 75 number, 0.75%. That has never happened since the 1970s, and we did it 4 times this year. We're expecting one more rate increase this year at 0.5%. What does that mean to you guys out there in layman's terms? Well, it means that interest rates are rising on a 30-year fixed mortgage. They're hovering right around 7%. We haven't seen rates as high as 7% since March 2002. Housing sales have dramatically slowed. I'm talking about the DMV, but I would gather to say I'm probably talking about most of the country. There are some subdivisions that don't have much inventory and the product is moving. Office space availability. I don't know why we haven't had an office space crash yet. Stay tuned, maybe because the owners of these office buildings have deeper pockets and they can hold on to these underperforming assets for a while, but I'm expecting an office space crash here soon. The number of foreclosure filings is way up. However, one of the positive signs to this marketplace is that we still have a low residential inventory environment. So that's something to keep in mind, because when people are talking to you about the 2008, 9, 10 crash, I don't see it happening. I see us going down maybe 5 or 10%. Interest rates will start going up, market will level off, people get used to the higher interest rate environment, and then I don't see us going down further than that. But that's my prediction. So in order to understand this presentation, you're just going to have to understand the current economic environment that we're in. So like I said earlier, I revamped this entire presentation to go over financing in the current marketplace. All right. Now, the money sources that I'm going to talk about, cash. You guys are probably wondering, well, what the heck does this guy need to talk about cash? I already know what cash is, but I'm going to go over some techniques on how you need to use your cash wisely. The next topic will be traditional mortgages. You guys probably know what that is, but I'm going to go over some techniques that you want to use in this marketplace to get you lower interest rates. And I'll go over FHA and VA assumable loans, which you want to stay tuned for that. I'll cover owner financing, subject to mortgages, DSCR loans, which are debt service coverage ratio loans, HELOCs, soft money, and hard money. So I'm going to try and cover all of these money sources within a very short period of time. So let me get moving on that, and I'll see if I can cover this within an hour time. I am kind of watching the time closely, so I'll try and be fast. Okay, topic 1, cash definition. We all know what cash is, right? But what it is, it's the ability to use cash to purchase real estate. Why do we want to do that? Because in a lot of cases, especially if you're buying a pre-foreclosure, you might only have about maybe 3 to 5 days to actually close the deal. So having a bank ready with cash in it, where you can go to that bank and draw a cashier check, that will actually put you ahead of the game. There's been many times where we've had to close deals on the pre-foreclosure side where we've had to close deals in 48 hours or less. And it's one of those properties where the foreclosure auction might be on a Wednesday. You get on a contract on a Sunday or Monday, but you're going to have to close it that Tuesday before the foreclosure sale. So cash is very important, right? So obviously cash is the easiest form of financing. Advantages to cash: quick to close, ability to win the deal. Disadvantages, obviously it's not scalable, non-leveraged return. You might have a lost opportunity in other deals because you pretty much used up all your resources. And it's also very difficult for new investors. Now, this chart is basically showing you, as the bottom line is showing, as you mature as an investor, you will end up building your cash and investment reserves, right? When I first started, I had a really good job, high-paying job. I got an engineering degree. I had a technology job, making a lot of money, and I had great credit. Well, one of the things that I didn't have when I was 25, 26 years old is I didn't have any cash, right? I really didn't have any built-up investments. But what I did have is I had a lot of credit cards. So I had those gold cards, right? So I had, $10,000 limits, $20,000 limits. And so what I would do is I would keep track of my little book. Well, how much gold card limit do I have? Or I could show up to a bank, draw down on my gold cards. Well, at one time, I had about $300,000 in cash. Well, not in cash, but I had $300,000 built up in gold cards. Well, my first purchase as an investor was a pre-foreclosure property with no money. And so I picked it up for $120,000. It was worth $200,000, but I had to close it in less than a week. So what did I do? I went to the bank. I drew down 120 grand on my credit cards. Now, the dangerous part of that is that it cost me about 3% to pull that money down. So me pulling 120 grand down, I had to pay 3% of that cash advance fee. So I had to pay $3,600. But I did use my credit card reserve to buy my first pre-foreclosure. So you can't lose sight of that. All right. So as you get older, you get personal line of credit, you get HELOCs, you get cash investments. So you build up your cash cachet, so to speak. And so one of the biggest reasons why I brought up the term cash is because you guys as investors, it doesn't matter whether you're a newbie investor or whether you're a sophisticated investor, you have got to be able to determine your liquidity quotient, right? So what is liquidity? Well, liquidity is the amount of money that you have on hand that you can go to the bank tomorrow and pull down. Your liquidity could be zero. It could be 50 grand. It could be 100 grand. What you need to do is you need to calculate your liquidity once a month, once a quarter. It all depends. It just depends on how often you're changing your environment. I pull liquidity a couple times, right? My businesses pull liquidity. We pull it daily because we're in the hard money environment and we've got about 35 million out there and I've got a lot of deals coming in. I've got to know which deals are paying off, which deals are going out, how much money I have in the bank. So as a hard money lender, we're actually assessing our liquidity almost on a daily basis. As a person, before I got into all this, I was probably calculating my liquidity once a quarter. But I was always calculating it because I might have been, when I was a younger investor, I might have been getting a new credit card. I might be getting a new HELOC on a property that I owned. I might be coming out of a property where I'm selling a fix and flip. Guess what? I have a bigger cash component. So as I got more and more mature as an investor, I don't calculate my liquidity that often. Right now, I might calculate my liquidity maybe once a year. I still calculate it, but maybe once a year. And the reason behind that is I don't really do that much individual investing anymore. I mean, everything around me is built around our companies. Okay. How do you calculate your liquidity? This is very, very important, you guys. Liquidity is basically cash on hand plus HELOCs. I've got another section on HELOCs later. Basically, it's home equity lines of credit, credit card availability, right? Be careful here. Use your credit card availability for investments. Do not use it to waste on consumables. Don't spend it. Other bank relationships, which are unsecured. That could be personal lines of credit. It could be other things from a bank, right? borrowing power against your brokerage accounts, and money raising ability from friends. Be careful, right? You don't want to borrow too much from friends and family, but in case you have a rainy day and you need money, maybe write down a couple of contacts that you have who might be willing to lend you money in the last minute. That's really important to keep track of that. All right. What do I compute for my liquidity these days? Obviously cash on hand, right? I have a bunch of cash accounts that are just sitting there. My bankers always go to me, especially Wells Fargo. They always go, Mr. Einsmann, why do you keep so much cash on hand? You can get a much better interest rate if you put into a CD. And my response is always the same. I need to have pockets of cash so that I can come in tomorrow and pull it, because the value of me not getting a high interest rate is traded in return for that quick investment that I might need to make. So I have cash on hand. I have HELOCs. I've got a couple of HELOCs. And the way you guys want to use HELOCs is that whenever you buy your own primary residence, make sure that once that equity goes up, you attach a primary HELOC on your house. And then if you move from that house and you buy another house and you keep that house as a rental, keep that HELOC out there, because you never know when you might use it. I also have credit card availability. I don't really do that anymore. I haven't done that in probably 17 or 18 years, but I do have credit cards if I need to tap into it. I haven't done that since I was much younger. I do have a lot of bank relationships. Most of my bank relationships started with community banks. We'll get into that later. Borrowing power against brokerage accounts. I do have a huge line of credit against my brokerage accounts in case I need it. I don't really raise much money from friends anymore, but that's probably something that you guys want to look into. All right, so that's cash. Tom, any questions on cash? Let me see if I can.
So I hit the wrong button. No, we have, what about cash value in the whole life insurance policy?
That's fine too, as long as you know what you can borrow against. So you have a cash feature, right? On that kind of a policy, you have two things, right? You have a cash feature, how much cash you have, but then how much you can borrow against it. So you got to really know that. I probably wouldn't tap out on that cash unless you really, really had to. But yeah, you can do that.
Gotcha.
I should probably add that.
Who can we get a HELOC through on a current rental?
Oh, that's a great question. Before the credit crunch started about 3 to 6 months ago, what I would do is I would go to my local community bank, and I'll get into exactly what a community bank is. Depending upon where you live, let's say I'm on the Virginia side, right? We've got Freedom Bank of Virginia, we've got Burke and Herbert, we got Sandy Spring, we got Fauquier Bank, we got a lot of smaller banks. I would look there first. If you have a credit union and you have an investment property, I would try that. Now, your credit unions are going to give you lower interest rates than a community bank, but a community bank is more of a handshake relationship kind of thing. So I would start with my community bank.
Okay, terrific. And Michelle's asking, is it a good idea taking a HELOC on a personal home, or isn't that considered mixing business and personal funds?
No. Always take it on your personal home. And the reason why you want to take it on your personal home is because the banks are less stringent on their on what they'll lend against. So sometimes banks can lend up to 90% of your house's value minus your first trust, and then give you HELOC for that. Other banks are 80%. So on your primary residence, I would definitely do it, right? Because all it's doing is putting a checkbook against your house. Now, what you want to do with that checkbook, though, once you get the HELOC in place, I would just put it somewhere like in a safety deposit box, or your whatever. If you got a safe at your house, or if you got the manila folder where you keep important documents like your passport, I would keep it there. And just remember, though, you've got to be disciplined, right? Do not use it for consumables. I would not do that. I would use it for investment purposes, because there is nothing wrong with investment debt. There is something wrong with consumer debt. So just be very careful.
Gotcha.
All right.
What LTV do you need to have? Last one. What LTV do you need to have to get a HELOC? Do you know?
Well, it just depends on the borrowing environment. Banks were offering up to 90%, but I think because higher interest rates and they're, maybe they're going through a little bit of a credit crunch, they'll usually lend up to 80%.
Right,
and so what I would try first, though, like I said, I would go to your primary bank where you keep all your money, right? Go there first. Go to a credit union second, right? Because where you keep your money is where you probably have your relationship. A lot of times what I've done is on my HELOCs, I've gone to credit unions where I've had no money, because the credit unions are more aggressive on what they'll do on HELOCs. So I got a HELOC with Alpha Federal Credit Union. I then made that into my depository bank as well. So, it just all depends, but that's what I would
Gotcha.
do.
Would you
Right.
still put a HELOC on the property that if you've got it rented out or under a, like a lease option or anything on the rental?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure, because the whole idea behind a HELOC is so that you have the checkbook sitting out there so that in case you have a liquidity event, right? Let's say that pre-foreclosure came up that you want to buy, but you got to buy it in 3 days. In case that good investment came up, but you got to be careful, right? I mean, real estate is actually simple. I mean, let's say I've got a house that's worth 400,000. There's a house coming to the courthouse steps, and they only got a 221st trust, and the seller is willing to sell it to you at 250, but you got to close in 2 days. That's a pretty good conservative investment, right? It's 250. You're buying it for it. The house is worth 400. So even if the market goes down 10%, you're still buying at 250 and it's still worth 360. That's a pretty conservative investment. So I would definitely tap into those kinds of vehicles when you're making that kind of investment. Now, would I go and buy Twitter? No, I wouldn't go buy Twitter with my HELOC. As a matter of fact, I might short it, but I wouldn't do that, right? Because would I buy crypto? No. So you just got to make sure that your liquidity for your investments is on a rock solid investment. And the only thing that I know that's pretty rock solid is residential real estate, as long as you buy into a pretty good equity position.
Gotcha.
All right.
Go for it. Thanks,
All
Tom.
Topic 2, traditional mortgages. Okay. I know most of us know what a traditional mortgage is. And the reason why I put this in here is because I want to talk about the FHA VA assumable components. And I will do that in further slides. Now, basically, traditional mortgages are for owner-occupant properties, right? It's up to the buyer's intent, but mostly they're for owner-occupants. Now, before the interest rates started spiking, the conventional product was the best product to get because it had not only the lowest interest rate, but you were required to make the lowest down payment. So that's why they were useful. You would go ahead and buy your primary residence. Once you've lived there for 4, 5, 6 years, you might want to keep it as a rental, and then you move and buy another house, use yet another conventional mortgage with another cheap interest rate. That's basically how I started my investment career. Even though I bought that one townhouse with all credit card debt, right? I then turned around and refinanced it with a mortgage, paid back all my credit cards. So now remember, I bought it at 120, it's worth 200. I refinanced it at about 130, but I still had a pretty good equity position. I then went ahead, once the market went up a little bit, it went up to 250. I then put the HELOC on that house. And so that's how I did it for that. Conventional mortgages come in different shapes and sizes on the traditional side. It's basically for 1 to 4 unit properties. It's basically for owner occupants. However, you can use it for investment purposes, and you can only get 10 loans. And it used to be 6 with the same bank. So you can have 10 mortgages on your credit report, right? And typically it's a 30-year AM schedule. Now, what's the qualification process for a traditional mortgage? There's a lot of paperwork, right? Income verification, credit check. They care about debt coverage ratios for you, and they also care about debt coverage ratios for the property. So there's going to be a lot of qualification there. Closing process, disclosure timing, document delivery timing, and funding timing. So it could take, 45 days, especially on a VA or an FHA loan or even USDA loan, which stands for United States Department of Agriculture. Those are for the loans in the rural areas. It could take them 45 days to do a loan. If you're a conventional loan with 25% down, they can close those guys in 15 days. So it all depends. And so if you're buying an investment property, this might not be the quick fix scenario for you, but it was the cheaper interest rate scenario before the interest rates started going up. Now, one of the things I want to cover is, and the reason why I put this in my presentation, and these next 2 slides are brand new, is that you guys can do what's called an assumable loan on both VA loans and FHA loans. A VA loan stands for Veterans Administration. A lot of times when you go and buy a house with a VA loan, you have to be retired military. You have to have your VA status. Now, when you assume a VA loan, you do not have to be military. As a matter of fact, they don't even care about that. Okay. But when you're assuming the loan, you're going to have to go through a lengthy qualification process with the loan servicer. There's an income verification, there's credit score, there's down payment, and there's also, they're going to charge you a 0.5% VA funding fee to assume the loan. Now you guys are probably going to ask me, well, why do you want to assume a loan, guys? Because in the last 7 years or so, what happened to their interest rates? They are very, very low, right? I'm talking 2.75% all the way up to 3.75%. So as an investor, you need to find out when you're buying the house, if you're going to fix and flip it or even keep it as a rental, the Bird method, right? You want to find out what the underlying mortgage is. Because if it's a VA loan or an FHA loan, guys, the assumption is back. The power of the assumption, I can't reiterate how powerful that is. So that is really good. Now, the downside on a VA assumption is that the seller VA entitlement does not go away. So as a VA borrower, you're only allowed 2 houses to buy, but you're only allowed a certain amount of money that you can borrow against it. So unless the person assuming the loan is a veteran, then your entitlement comes back to you. But odds are, if you're an investor, you might not be a veteran, so your entitlement doesn't go away. So as long as you understand that. If you're assuming a VA loan and you're getting a good investor deal, you're probably going to have to come up with a down payment, because, you know, if the house is worth, let's say, I don't know, let's use the same $400,000 example again. If the house is worth $400,000 and they owe $300,000, but their interest rate is 2.75%, and they took the loan out 5 years ago, you know, you might need to buy that house for $320,000, $330,000. So you might need to come up and give them a $30,000 down payment, but you had just assumed a loan 5 years into the 30-year AM at a very, very low interest rate. So there's a lot of power to that. So don't lose sight of that. Okay, which brings me to the next assumption that's out there, and that's called an FHA assumption, right? And so there's a lot of different kinds of loans out there. There's FHA, Federal Home Agency. We all know what that is. There's also VHDA, which I'll talk about that in a later discussion when we talk about an VHDA subject too. But on the FHA, it's pretty much similar to a VA assumption, where you're going to have to go through a qualification process. Income verification, you're going to have a FICO score. Right now it's 600 and above. They will check that. Let's see, on a loan before 1986, there's no restrictions on assumability. How many of those loans are still out there? Probably zero. Post 1986, lender participation is required. What that means by lender participation is that it's a two-pronged approach. You got to get approved by your loan servicer, and then you're going to have to get FHA approval as well. Again, if you got a good deal, it's a low interest rate, you might have to put down a little bit of a down payment to make the deal work for the seller. Okay. Oh, but the seller on both the FHA assumption and the VA assumption, once you assume those loans, the seller's liability comes off the record. You then go on the loan and you're liable for the loan, which is a little bit different than subject twos, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. All right. Advantages, traditional mortgages. It used to be the interest rates, but now that the interest rates are climbing, maybe not so much anymore. However, the assumption part of this is the advantage, right? Because if you can buy a property, especially on the BRR method, if you can assume a VA or an FHA loan and you can get that really great interest rate, that's money in the bank. The interest rate is money in the bank. You're going to get maximum leverage by using these loans. Less cash out of your pocket. VA is 0% down payment. FHA is 3.5%. Some conventionals are 5%. I know Navy Federal Credit Union was offering a conventional loan at 0%. Not sure if they're still doing that. So you're going to get maximum leverage with a traditional mortgage at a lower interest rate. Disadvantages is, guys, documentation. There's a limit on how many mortgages you can have. I said it's up to 10 with 6 at the same bank. Length of time to close. These things, like I said, 30, 45 days. And it does not include a renovation budget. So if you're buying a property and you're assuming a loan from somebody, you're going to have to probably put in your renovation costs on your own. All right, any questions?
Let's see here. It's just saying great, didn't know about assumable loans. Awesome. Principal pay down accelerated, great point, rates. Do 10 mortgages on your credit reports flag you as the dealer on your tax return?
As what?
As a dealer.
No, No, because the IRS isn't pulling your credit.
Cool.
But you want to, obviously, just like anything else, you want to disclose as much as you can. But the IRS is going to know that you have, I'm assuming if you have 10 mortgages, my guess is 8 of them are going to be investment properties, right? Because you might have your primary residence, you might have a HELOC showing up on your credit report, and then you got to go to the property. So the rentals, and they're going to go on your Schedule C. So they're going to know that you've got rental properties, and so then you're going to expense it out. So you're going to have interest expense, right? And all the banks are going to be sending you 1098s. So, oh yeah, I don't know a little bit. They know more than you might want them to know.
Cool.
All right. Owner financing. This is basically another great form of financing, especially in a higher interest rate scenario, right? It's basically where the owner owns the property outright. You go and make a deal with the owner and buy it from them and have them carry a mortgage. It's got a lot of advantages for the owner because the property, the capital gains tax gets deferred. It's more of an installment contract, so they pay every year on the interest. So there's a lot of, like I said, benefits to them. The benefits to you is you guys can negotiate whatever term you want to negotiate. The AM schedule, you can negotiate the interest rate, you can negotiate the down payment, you can negotiate a balloon if there is a balloon. A lot of times when we find properties that are owned outright, we'll make them 3 offers. If I'm going to keep it as a rental, I'll make them a cash offer, which is the lowest of the 3. I'll make them a offer that assumes we're going to get financing with the community bank, which I got to put 25% down. And then I'll make them a 90 to 100% offer of what the house is worth, provided I could get 0% financing. And you guys ask, well, why would you give somebody, if you're an investor, why would you give somebody 100% or 90% of what the property's worth if that's what they want? Well, if I could get that 0% interest rate and I know that I'm going to rent it out, then guess what, guys? All of the rent and all the payment that I'm making him is going to go directly to principal. So it doesn't matter. And so if you do an AM schedule over, let's say 15 years, guess what? 15 years, you own the property outright. Who really cares what you bought it for? It just depends on your strategy, right? And so there's just a lot of different ways to use owner financing. Now, the problem with that is that, let's face it, guys, there's not, well, I guess there's more and more people that probably own their houses outright. And the reason why I say this is that a lot of people have owned their houses for a long time. But if you guys go back to 2008, 9, and 10, what was going on? Who were the buyers in 2009 and 10? The under 250 space, especially in DMV, they were mostly cash buyers. And a lot of those guys still own those houses. So they would fit this model perfectly if they decided to go sell. So this is another really good vehicle. What are the advantages, right? Number one advantage is interest rates, right? Because we are in such a high interest rate environment. And let me tell you guys something. These interest rates are going to go higher before they go lower. And so as each of these interest rates ticks up, the market, it impacts a buyer's ability to purchase a house in this market, which eventually is going to level off the market. It's going to take prices down, right? Because they can only afford so much. And so the advantages is interest rates. There's no application documentation. You're dealing directly with the owner. He probably doesn't want to see no application. He might ask for it. I've never had anybody ask me for an application, an owner. Matter of fact, when I go buy houses all cash, they never even ask me for a proof of funds. So they're surely not going to ask you for an application. Minimal flexible down payment. You can negotiate that. Like I said, the advantages are the owner avoids capital gains. It then becomes an installment contract. Once that loan gets paid off, let's say you go and refinance it, then they've got to bring a current on the capital gains. Fast closing, cheaper closing, right? Because obviously you're probably going to negotiate no points, right? No lender fees, because these owners aren't sophisticated enough to charge points and to charge owner fees. As a matter of fact, they're not even going to charge you an appraisal fee because you're probably not even going to get an appraisal. And so the disadvantages are they're hard to find. It could be a short-term loan because most owner finance deals, especially if you're dealing with an older seller, unless they're going to will it away to a family member, they're going to want their money sooner than later. So they're going to probably put a 5-year balloon on there or a 10-year balloon. So, but you can negotiate the balloon, right? Obviously the longer, so if you guys don't know what a balloon is, a balloon means if I have a 5-year balloon, then once the 60 months are up and you've made payments, that loan is due in full. That's what a balloon is. Okay, I'm sorry, I should have explained that just in case you guys don't know what a balloon is. So the balloon time frame is negotiable as well, but that could be a negative because especially, let's say you got an owner finance deal 5 years ago and you have a 5-year balloon and that thing is expiring today. I don't think you want to borrow money today. You'd rather have borrowed the money 5 years ago. So you got to keep that in mind. All right, any questions on any of this stuff? Oh, this is great. I'm rolling through this. I see I've got 20 minutes. I'll hustle up. All right, the next topic I want to talk to you guys about is something called subject to financing. And subject to financing is, there's going to be so many more deals in the next 2 or 3 years on subject to financing than we've ever seen. And the reason is because we're in a higher interest rate environment. Remember when I told you guys at the beginning of this presentation, I revamped this entire presentation to fit the current market right now. And so this is one of the new additions to the presentation. What is subject to? A purchaser investor takes the rights to the title of the property while the seller's existing mortgage stays in place. This is not the same thing as an assumable mortgage because you are not going through an approval cycle. The title transfers, so you become the owner. The deed of trust and the promissory note stays, or the mortgage, depending upon what state you're in, stays in the current owner's name. They do not get released from the debt. As a matter of fact, the bank or the servicer that's servicing that loan does not even know about a subject to deal. Okay, nor are you required to disclose it. Now, the purchaser / investor simply just takes over the payments, right? It's the same thing as an assumable. You make the deal. There could be a down payment, right? Maybe there's not, but you should always give them something. You shouldn't just say, I'm going to subject to your house, now get out of my house. You should give them at least 5, 10, 20 grand, especially if you're getting a good deal. So you're going to have to give them some walking money. And so I'll go through a live deal after this on a subject to. One of the pitfalls that you have to understand is that if the bank does find out, they do have a due on sale clause. Now, if you're an investor and you're buying a house, odds are you're probably getting a good deal. You're probably getting a good equity position. And as long as you're current on that mortgage, and I repeat this, I have never seen a bank call a subject to due on sale clause, right? I've never seen it. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I've never seen it. So those are pretty good odds. You know, just like I go to the attorney, I talk to my attorney. Remember, you talk to your attorneys, you guys are the boss. I say, okay, well, what are my odds on something bad happening? And, you know, every attorney is going to say, man, you know, I got a 95% chance this is going to be good. And I've got that 5% assurance that it might go bad. But I think you shouldn't do it because of this 5%. Well, you know what I say? I'm the boss. I'm doing it. I like my 95% odds. This has better odds than that. Like I said, I've never seen it happen. And I've been part of about, I don't know, probably 100, 120 subject to deals. Purchaser incurs no liability to repay the loan. Now, if there is a due on sale clause, people are actually offering an insurance product to cover the chances that a due on sale clause might happen. Now, I want to be in that business because I want to collect those insurance premiums, because that's probably not going to happen, because I'm sure one of the clauses in that insurance says you as the borrower are going to keep current on that mortgage, right? That's got to be one of the underwriting criteria of the insurance. So I would like to own that insurance company. When I found that out, I was like, I need to buy this company, because you're just collecting premiums and never having to pay anything out. What a great business model. All right, you guys got that? All right, now I want to cover a live deal example with you guys to help out so that you guys can actually see a live deal, so that you further understand this, because I have a feeling there might be a few questions. Here is I don't want to give the entire address of the property, just because I don't want, I guess you guys could probably figure it out, but 7XX Ripplebrook Drive, Culpeper, Virginia. Here's the background. It's a single family house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It was built in 1998. And this is key too, it's important too. It's in a cookie cutter subdivision. What do I mean by that? It's a subdivision. It's either townhouses, single family homes. It might have an HOA, but all the houses are very similar in style and design. And we all know what an HOA is, right? House was in pre-foreclosure. It was vacant, and it was an out-of-town owner. Guys, these check all the boxes, right? For your purchase criteria. This is exactly what we look for. Vacant, out-of-town owner. It might not be in pre-foreclosure, but a pre-foreclosure. The original loan was through VHDA. Now, it was $218,000. But what I didn't put on this chart, and there's a reason why I didn't do it, I didn't have enough room, is that there's actually a first trust at 213,500, 211,500, and the second trust at 6,500, right? Because you're making 2 payments on this VHDA loan because part of it is a grant, is like a down payment grant. But I just consolidated it for simplicity purposes. So let's say the first trust was $218,000 because I added both of them because there's actually 2 payments on this loan. The loan origination date was December 30, 2015. The interest rate was 3.75%. So the loan arrearages to bring it current was $44,002. And the current loan amount, once you brought the loan current, was $191,500. And oh, by the way, I didn't put this in here, but it was a 30-year AM schedule, which is really important when you're looking at subject twos, when you're looking at VA, FHA assumptions. You got to kind of know the AM schedule. Most likely they're 30 years. Okay, so I would rest my laurels that it's 30 years. By seeing a VHDA loan, I kind of know it's 30 years. So in this case, it's a 30-year AM schedule, even though I didn't put it in the chart. Okay, so once that loan was brought current, the loan amount was only $191,500. Now, look at the beauty of this thing, right? We are at that point in time, 11/8/2021, we're almost 6 years into the AM schedule. So this loan only has 24 more years left on it at 3.75%. Okay, keep that in mind because I'm going to ask you a question here in a second. The owner signed off on a deed for $10,000. So we gave the owner $10,000, right, to sign the deed. At the same time, we sent the substitute trustee a check or wire for $44,002, right? And that kept the mortgage in place. Okay. Now, I want you guys to do a quick math problem and tell me what the purchase price of this property is or was. And I'll give you a minute. That's all you're getting. Tom, are they answering the question?
Yeah, let me see. We got Juan saying 65,000. Marcella's saying 54,002. Eric saying 54K.
Now we're gonna have a lot of questions here, Tom. We're gonna have a lot of questions subject to.
Yep, 50K.
Did anybody say $245,502?
Yes.
Who?
It literally just came in, Diraj.
Diraj, I figured he'd get it right. That Diraj, man. Diraj, you're a smart guy. What I know is Diraj. Okay, let me explain. And this is why I'm covering this chart so you guys can understand this. Why did Diraj say 245,502? Well, the reason is, guys, you have to understand you still owe 191,500 for this property. There's still a lien on that property, right? So you owe 191,500. So the deal is 191,500 plus the 4402 to bring it current, plus the $10,000 you gave the owner to sign you over the deed. So your total purchase price is 245,502. Now, I think you guys were confusing the cash component versus the debt component. So whoever said 54,002, you're sort of right, but you're kind of right where you spent 54,002 out of your pocket in cash, right? And I'm going to go into one more question here in a second. So, but the total purchase price is 245,502. Now, let me explain to you the beauty of the deal. This is the beauty is coming up. The ARV is $375,000. That's what it was at the time, and that's sort of what it still is. Even though we went through a nice spring of 2022, we kind of hit the skids a little bit. So we kind of went up 10%, maybe went down 10%, or went up 10%, went down 5%. Doesn't matter. The ARV is 375. So you have just purchased a nice property with $130,000 equity position and it's now today a rental. And here's the reason why it's a rental. The loan payment, PITI, is $1,365. That's all it is. And the beauty is 3.75. But guess what, guys? Now I think the loan amount's only 24 years left on that loan. But you're $1,365. The rents over there are $1,950. So you're getting a positive cash flow of $585. Here's my last math question that I'm going to ask you. If you take the positive cash flow, what is the rate of return annually on the cash out of your pocket that you spent? I'm going to give you one more minute. This is a little bit harder math problem, but you guys have got to understand this so you understand all these concepts, right? And then I'll walk you through it. Any answers? Tom, any answers?
Can you ask the question again, please, Charlie? A couple people are asking.
Tell me just the cash on cash rate of return of this rental property on an annualized basis.
Okay, cash on cash, annualized.
Well, I'm looking at these screens, Tom. These guys look like they're still awake.
They are.
Y'all still awake?
Good numbers. Jiraj says 13%.
See?
Gregory
Jiraj.
saying 200%. Jennifer is at 12.9. Bill's saying 13% in year one.
There we go.
Srinivas is saying 13%.
There we go. Nope, don't care. Good. Yes.
No, 12.99 and 13 to 14%.
You guys are great. Now you're getting it. See, these are very important concepts, right? So the answer is actually 12.999518536355051.
Oh, goodness me. It's like pie.
So if you said 12.99, you were correct. If you said 13%, you're right on the money. So here's what I mean by cash on cash return. Now we're not taking the built-in equity. We're not taking that in context, because remember, on the equity side, there's two ways of deriving equity. Number one is the market appreciation, which we cannot count on. But that's one way of getting equity. Number two, you do have some principal pay down, but I'm not talking about that. All I'm talking about is how much money do I have in this deal on a cash basis? I've got $54,002, right? You guys see that? I spent 54. Now, the beautiful thing that I didn't tell you guys is that this house, the renovation on this house, was, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000. So we're not including that for this purposes, but it was about 5 or 10. They just had to get it rent ready. All right. So now what you do is, you see where it says positive cash flow of 585. All you do, guys, is you simply multiply 585 times 12, right? So I multiply 585 times 12. So in this asset, I'm making $7,000 a year residual income. Now we do have some vacancy. We do have a little bit of maintenance. But remember, this house is built in 1998, so it ain't gonna be that bad. All right. So what I did is I divided $7,000 roughly, and I divided into $54,000, and I came up with a 13% return cash on cash. If you guys can make that kind of solid investment, would you do it? Of course you would. So that's the power of the subject to. That's the power of buying into value in real estate. And that's the power of having a renter pay down your debt for you. So this is a very powerful scenario. Now, the reason why I have this chart up is because guys, these kinds of deals are going to be happening more and more so, especially for you buy and hold investors. This is probably one of the things you want to attack, are these subject to deals. Now, when you do a subject to deal, you're going to have to get a certain title company to do the deal, and you're going to have a 1 or 2 page agreement between the buyer and the seller so that both of them understand the pitfalls. Mr. Buyer, you are on title, but there is a due on sale clause from the bank if they chose to do so. Pitfall. Pitfall from the seller. You are still on the loan. So you still are obligated to the loan. Now, odds are if it goes to foreclosure sale and the owner forecloses, probably going to pay back all the debt anyway, so you're going to owe zero. But you're still on it and your credit's still getting reported to. Now, you should be happy because if somebody's paying your loan current, they're actually going to be helping your credit score. Okay, now, advantages, disadvantages, subject tos, interest rate, especially now. This is why we're bringing this up, especially in this economy. Terms of the existing note, right? Now we have 25 years left on that AM schedule, 24. That's powerful. There's no application documentation because remember, the bank doesn't know that you're doing the subject to. Minimal down payment, if any. In our case, the guy was living in New Jersey. We literally drove to New Jersey and did the deal in New Jersey. I already had the deed. He had already signed off on the deed, and so it was already notarized. And so we basically gave him $10,000 cashier check. We wired the $44,000 to the substitute trustee. Foreclosure auction canceled. Boom, done. Property's in your name. Disadvantages: bank can recall the loan on an ownership change. They can. The former owner is still on the hook for the obligation. That's it. And those really aren't disadvantages. Maybe the owner, right? I mean, but it's helping their credit. But they're in a bad position anyway. Remember, we just saved a foreclosure. So it just depends. Be careful. Any questions, Tom, on that?
Take a look. What protects you from the seller coming back a few years later from suing you or possibly taking advantage of them?
Right. So that's why that 1 or 2 page document that's outside of your normal closing, it's in there. It's in there. You're gonna put that in there.
Gotcha.
All sides are of able mind and body. They know what's going on. They know the advantages. They know the pitfalls. That's why you've got to close this thing with certain title companies, and you need to find out who those title companies are. I obviously can recommend a couple in the DMV area, but if you're in other parts of the country, which you might be, especially down in Florida, you're going to have to go find out. I'm sure Tom and those guys know who the subject to title companies are, because you're going to have that legal document drawn up. That's part of your closing package, but it doesn't exist in any other closing package because it's not a subject to deal. So you just got to make sure that title company is very experienced with these kinds of transactions.
Gotcha. Charlie, do you change the property insurance company?
Great question. That is a wonderful question. And the answer is yes. And I'll tell you why. And this is another reason why the bank will probably find out about it. But if it's a big bank, they've got so many insurance changes, man, they're not going to keep track of that. Yeah. And the reason is because you need to put the mortgagee clause stays the same, but the beneficiary has to change. Because remember, in my previous example, it's a PITI deal. So taxes and insurance are being paid out of that 1365, right? But the insurance policy that's in place is getting paid. And so you're going to have to replace out the insurance policy in case of a fire or storm damage to the house, so that once the check comes out from the insurance company, you don't want it going back to the other owner.
Gotcha.
You want to be careful.
Shelby's asking, this deal does not require a realtor, correct?
No. You have to understand, guys. Okay, I need to caveat this. None of the deals that I will bring up ever do not have realtor involvement unless they referred me the deal. Okay, but you need to educate your realtors. I know there's a bunch of realtors on here on how to do these kinds of deals and how to find them, because you want to keep your realtors in your toolbox as referral sources. So if the realtors know about VA assumptions, if they know about FHA assumptions, if they know about subject to deals, oh my God, that's wonderful. They can bring them to you because they know you'll, and the only thing that you need to do for the realtor is that the cash component going into the deal has got to be enough to pay out the commissions, right? Because the realtors obviously don't want a commission. So this deal that I talked about, remember, there's only $10,000 new dollars really going into the deal, right? 44,000 went directly to the substitute trustee who brought the loan current, and 10,000 went to the owner. So you're going to have to leave some money in the deal for the realtor. So you're going to have to probably jack up your down payment. That's all. No big deal. Just
So
keep
as
the
long as they
realtor
take
involved.
care of,
Huh?
gotcha. Make sure you take care of the agent, and then they won't want to box you out.
Yeah, I see that I'm running short on time, guys. I'm going to cover one more topic quick, and I'll go right to the end of the presentation. All right, Tom?
That's cool.
So I'm not going to get to community bank, soft money. I'm not going to get to hard money, but I need to close out with at least this. Okay, the next type of loan is something called a DSCR loan. It's a debt service coverage ratio loan. And this is for buy and hold investors. And so the key qualification of the loan, though, is the income of the property itself, income producing properties. And so the methodology of a DSCR loan changes slightly if you're doing a yearly lease versus a Airbnb versus a VRBO. So the income qualification on the property is a little bit different for each one, but the income of the property is the key qualifier. It can be done on a single property or a portfolio of properties. We just got a DSCR loan from Sandy Spring Bank on 50 rental properties that we own. It was a big loan, but that was a DSCR loan. And we were lucky. We sort of got underneath the raising interest rate environment that we're out, thank God. And we were fortunate. They're pretty much LLC loans. They are going to require either a down payment if you're purchasing it or an equity position. If you have a good equity position, then they're not going to require a down payment. So if you bought that house that's worth 400,000, or the example that we used, if we went and refinanced our subject to, it's worth 375, we only owe 190 on it. That's going to fit that criteria. There's going to be no down payment required. There might be a 3 to 6 month interest reserve depending upon the bank. Currently, though, it's a 660 credit score or higher. And what they do, even though it's an LLC to LLC kind of deal, they're going to, any managing members that are a certain ownership or more, if it's a 50-50 ownership, they're going to want to pull credit on both owners. It just depends on the ownership on whose credit gets pulled. The majority partner of the LLC is going to have to definitely get their credit pulled. You can also pick your AM schedule, 30, 25 year, 20 year, 15 year, etc. Obviously, the longer the AM schedule, the better it's going to cash flow. I don't know if they have a 40-year option, but I didn't put that in there. I'm not sure. And you can have multiple loans. A DSCR calculation. Remember, it stands for debt service coverage ratio. It's basically the property rents divided by the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And I've got an A in parentheses. Those are association dues, condo dues, HOA dues. Not all houses have that, but if it does, it's going to factor into the DSCR factor. I got an example. If you're receiving $2,500 in rent, $2,000 payment, then your DSCR is 1.25. The higher the DSCR, the lower the interest rate. That's another interest rate barometer for these lenders. And there's no personal income requirement, but there is a credit check. Advantages, flexibility, multiple loans, multiple properties. There's no 10 loan limit, flexible AM schedule, interest rates, disadvantage, interest rates, credit score requirement. And that's it for that. I'm going to go directly to the end because I know I'm running out of time. Are there any questions on that, Tom?
There's a bunch of questions we haven't answered. Why don't you hit the last topic? And then
Okay.
I appreciate you cramming because I mean, this is a big presentation for an hour, but I don't mind staying longer. People are free to stay longer and I can clear through some of the questions.
Okay.
But let's hit topic 8 there, or what?
No, topic 8. I'm going to go to my last slide.
Sorry, it was the last one I saw on the screen.
All right, last slide, guys. Now, this is really, really important. And I wasn't going to not do this slide because what are your pre-recession actions? I think we're in a recession. It's my opinion. I've thought that for some time now. Not just because all the government numbers aren't saying we're in a recession. I think we are. Remember I said that? I think we were in one since September. So when we go back 6 months from now, they're going to say, oh, the recession started in September. Then you'll say, hey, that guy knows what he's talking about. Okay. First thing, what do you got to do, guys? You got to understand your liquidity. Whether you're doing it monthly, quarterly, annual, you better understand it. You better be keeping a balance sheet of all your assets, all of your liabilities, and you better be keeping an income statement. These are tools that you need to start doing if you're not already doing it. You got to maintain good credit. If you don't have good credit, now's the time to keep building it up. You've got to increase your borrowing power, right? And what does that mean? That means go get a line of credit from the bank, go get a HELOC, go maybe get those gold cards I was talking about. Be careful. So increase your borrowing power and your liquidity, increase your savings rate, right? Increase these things. This is the time to do it. Loan products change during a recession. Did I say recession? I'm sorry. I'm already seeing them. There's a 2-1 buy down on the conventional side. A 2-1 buy down is basically it's a seller subsidy where the mortgage company is offering a 2-1 buy down. What that means is if the interest rate is 7%, 30-year fixed, year 1, they'll do a 5% rate. Year 2, they'll do a 6% rate. And then year 3 through year 30, it goes back to 7. What that enables your buyer to do is qualify at that 5% fixed 30-year AM rate, and it increases their buyability. That's called a 2-1 buy down. That's a conventional loan. Talk to your loan officer. They're coming out with 1-year, 3-year, 7-year ARMs. A little risky. You just got to understand the indice that it's against and the and the margin above that indice, but I'm seeing those products now. And you got to have multiple exit strategies with your properties, guys. I can't tell you how many properties people have bought in the last 3 to 6 months through me as a hard money lender, and they're having to turn around and either refinance them or rent them out or sell them for much lower prices than they thought they were going to get. So you've got to have multiple exit strategies. So you just got to, you got to be prepared. I mean, we're in for turbulent times. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, I've got some other topics on here, but I wanted to get to the most important ones first. And you guys understand, I'm a hard money lender. I didn't even cover hard money lending just because in this environment, because of the rising interest rates, there's a lot of really, really good strategies that you guys have to understand before you worry about any soft money or hard money. Okay, that's me on there. Feel free to call or email. All right, questions?
Yeah, Charlie, yikes. That was fantastic amounts of stuff. I mean, that's a full day presentation, and you delivered it in like an hour and 4 minutes, which is
I
pretty.
cut a bunch of stuff off too.
That's well, maybe we'll have to get to that another day. Now, let me dig into some questions, and people are saying great presentation, wonderful presentation. We need Charlie to go back over what was missed. Yeah, great stuff indeed. So, and a lot of applause. So let me go back. I'm going to try to dig back.
I see one. Daraj asked a good question. Can a sub-2 be bought with a self-directed IRA?
Yes.
The answer is yes. However, when you're using the renovation and the down payment and the closing costs or whatever you're doing, it needs to come out of your IRA account. You can't commingle it. So just make sure you're careful about that. And then the owner becomes your IRA. And then when you make the payments, Daraj, it has to come out of your IRA checkbook. I'm assuming you have a self-directed IRA. Okay.
Gotcha. You're able to see the chat now, right, Charlie?
I can see it. Yeah, I got rid of my stuff.
So fire away and answer as you see fit.
All right. Regarding hard money, what are your terms, Maria? You can send me an email. Right now, we're running average terms, 12% 3 points. I lend up to 75% of the after repair value, so it doesn't matter what you bought it for. My loan to cost is the purchase price plus the renovation. I'm loaning between 90 to 95% loan to cost. I was lending at 100%. It just depends on the deal. If you got a great deal, I'll give you 100% everything if I like it. I mean, I've done that before too. So. Can you use a non-recourse letter? I mean, all the things that I'm talking about are non-recourse. Now, the VA and the FHA assumptions, they're going to be recourse. The subject to is not going to be recourse. You can, if you're buying an owner finance deal, just put a non-recourse in there. You know, just add that in there. But the FHA and the VA assumable are going to be recourse loans. That's all I kind of see, Tom.
Scroll up a bit, Charlie. You'll see quite a few.
Oh shit.
Somebody
asked local banks for these loans. I don't know what that means. Local banks for what type of loans?
Shelby, if you're on, you can unmute and
yeah, what type of bank for what loans?
Yeah, that was for the last one that you presented. The DSC or whatever.
Oh yeah. I'll have to email me. Yeah, that's a good question. Email me. I got a couple banks I can refer it out if you need the DSCR loan, and that's not something we would offer. But I've got a couple good point of contacts that offer that. The only downside to a DSCR is, you know, you want to try conventional first. A DSCR is going to be a little bit more expensive than a conventional, so just keep that in mind.
Gotcha.
What's my email?
Zachariah is asking, yeah, well, I'll pop it in the chat as well. Feel free to pop it in there. You could type it faster than I could. Zachariah is asking, do you also ask the tenant to get it notarized as well, like it is with an investor or wholesaler?
I think that was for subject to.
Subject to, yeah.
Do you have what now?
To conversation. Do you ask it during the subject to conversation? Zachariah asked, do you also ask the tenant to get it notarized as well?
No, tenant has nothing to do with it. The tenant has different. There's just a normal lease.
Gotcha.
And that tenant just is by the lease. The tenant has no bearing in the ownership chain and the lien chain. It's not. As a matter of fact, it's none of their business. right? So, I mean, it's just a normal landlord tenant lease. So they have no say in any of this stuff. Matter of fact, that if you buy it, the particular example I went over, it was vacant. But if you are buying a subject to with an existing tenant in there, all you need to do is make an addendum to the lease and put you on there as a new landlord and have the tenant sign an addendum to the existing lease, because I'm assuming you're going to be buying that house subject to the lease. I think
Gotcha.
that's what they're trying to ask, if there's an existing tenant in there.
Gotcha.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Yeah, Charlie, there's a few. You're welcome to stick around. You want to answer? You want to
Yeah,
go?
It's up to you, Tom. I've got.
Yeah, I'm cool. Again, people, if you got to bounce, that I understand. If you want to stay, because there was a lot of good questions, because it was a Charlie, it was a phenomenal.
Okay, Paul asked a pretty good question. DC does, Washington DC does have TOPA rights. But I thought they relinquished the TOPA rights for the 1 to 4 space so that the tenants couldn't hold that transaction as hostage. I'd have to look into that, but there are TOPA rights, but
I'm not sure at the moment.
I thought they relinquished that, but I could be wrong.
Also, the
Send me an email on it. I'll have the answer tomorrow.
Yeah. Can you have your LLC act as manager of the property and added beneficiary to the policy without raising any red flags with the bank?
No, you got to just add it as a beneficiary and get out a new policy. Or you can take that existing policy, add you as a beneficiary, but in order to add you as a beneficiary, you want to take the old owner off. I mean, that's the key. I mean, you can risk it and not change that existing insurance policy, because if it's a PITI loan, they're going to continue to pay the insurance policy. Every year, the insurance is going to renew automatically unless the owner cancels it. I mean, that could happen. The owner could cancel it, but I wouldn't do that. I just think that's too risky. I would just go and get a new policy and risk that. That's what I would do.
Gotcha. And Helga was asking about specific companies in Northern Virginia. Helga, email Charlie directly for that. Because then
you can get a conventional loan under your LLC, but you're going to have to qualify under the managing members. So if you have let's say you have 2 managing members, 50-50, both managing members are going to have to qualify as well as the LLC. So you're going to have to go through an individual qualification process. Yeah.
Gotcha. And Charlie, Bob's asking, how did the owner get 44,000 in arrears?
Right. That's a great question. Foreclosure moratorium being one of them.
Yeah.
So they were 12 months, 13, 14 months behind. There are so many more owners that are so far way behind than just 12 months. And it's ridiculous how far behind they are. But in this case, yeah, they were 44. I don't think he paid the mortgage for 1,300, 44,000 divided by 1,300 minus fees, whatever the heck that is. 20 months. Maybe
20.
Yeah, he was 2 or 3 years behind. Anything else? That's all I see.
Yeah, as I'm scrolling back, some of these they're relative to what you were saying at the moment, so it's hard for me to figure out.
In what scenarios can you do a subject to deal with no money down? You can do it. You can do it. I mean, it's all negotiable, but if the owner or somebody is living in the property, you have to give the owner incentive to sign the deed, right? If I'm an owner and you're giving me 0, I might not sign the deed. Even though I'm in distress, I might let that thing go to foreclosure, because if it goes to a foreclosure auction, that loan amount is so small, you're going to get a full debt bid, and then the people at the auction are going to bid it way up, and then you're going to get the surplus cash coming out of the auction. And not too many owners know that, but I wouldn't do that. I've never heard of a subject to with no money down, but I'm sure it could be done. But you got to give somebody incentive to do something. So
Gotcha.
It doesn't say it can't be done. You always got to give some kind of walking money.
Gotcha. And Helga's asking, how do you find sellers that will not require a down payment?
Owner finance seller, look for the deals where they own the properties outright. There's just a lot of them are going to require a down payment. Now you could go, I don't know if you have VA eligibility. VA loans require no money down. Like I said earlier, Navy Federal Credit Union, which I believe is nationwide, offered I still think they do. I think they offer a conventional 0% down loan product, but the caveat is I believe the credit score has got to be 720 or above. So you can't be walking in there with a 640 or 650 if you want to get a 0% down Navy Federal conventional loan. I think you're going to have to come at least a 720. But those requirements change all the time. Keep that in mind, guys. Two things changing, right? Interest rates and the credit requirements of these lenders are changing too. What tool are you using to get a list of past due mortgages? A good question. The tool that I'm using are just basic substitute trustee ads in the newspaper. It depends on where you're at. If you're in a mortgage state, sheriff sales. If you're in a deed of trust state, it's trustee sales. They come out in public newspapers. There used to be NODs, notification of defaults, but that stuff doesn't really come out that often anymore. So really the trustee sale ads is the best way to know about delinquent mortgages. And usually those are posted about 4 or 5 weeks before the actual public auction. A different topic for a different day, but it's all good.
That works. What other ones you see in there, Charlie? I've scrolled back the best I could.
Is your LTC combined with ARV? No, LTC is separate than the ARV. The LTC number on hard money loans is separate than the ARV calculation. We have two calculations. We have an ARV calculation and we have a loan to cost calculation on the hard money side. If you sell a house subject to and has a HELOC, yeah. I mean, if it's a subject to and you're subject toing the first trust and there's a HELOC, you could subject to both of them. I wouldn't, you really got to understand the HELOC and I would close that HELOC down, because let's say, for example, there's a $100,000 HELOC. The seller owes only $50,000 on it. You're subject toing that HELOC and you're subject to in a first trust. Well, there's nothing that prevents that seller from rolling down the street and getting that additional 50. So you're going to have to make sure that HELOC gets termed out. That's a dangerous proposition, but you can do it. Like I said, you better term out that HELOC and then do a subject to on it.
Question, do you have a list of these community bank products? Rhonda's asking.
I do.
Popped your email in there a couple of times.
I do. I'll send it to you.
Charlie at cskyfinancial.com.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a fix and flip line, buy and hold line. I've actually got a hard money loan with these guys. I've got a tax lien certificate line. So they offer a bunch of different lines, but it's a more thorough process to get approved. You got to have your house in order to deal with these community banks.
Gotcha. What terms would you offer for owner financing if there's a 75-year-old seller?
10-year balloon, 30-year AM, 2%. You can get away with it.
Sure.
1%. I mean, it's all negotiable. Just depends, because they're getting a principal part of that payment, which is going to be a lot more than the interest rate. What I would do, honestly, one of the things that I would do for a 75-year-old seller is I would say this. I would say, hey, Mr. Seller, how much monthly money income would you be happy with? Let them answer that question. And if that's good for you, then I would just build an owner finance loan around that answer. That's how I bought a trailer park. Same way, owner finance. I said to the guy, I said, how much money you want? He was a trustee representing a autistic owner. He goes, as long as Loretta can get $10,000 a month, that's all I want. And so I built a loan around $10,000 a month. It happened to be $1.2 million loan, but that's what we did. We did that for 5 years. So I would do that.
So pinpoint the problem first and put together a package.
Yeah, solution.
Yep. Let's see. Charlie Hug is asking, you mentioned that the seller would rather just foreclose and get a higher bid for the house, but wouldn't foreclosure really hurt their credit and impact their ability to get their next home?
It's already dinged up. Remember, in order for them to go to foreclosure, they're at least 3 to 6 months late on their mortgage, if not longer. And their credit has been getting beat up for a long time. So the foreclosure is going to put them out a little bit more, but I think it's a lot more valuable to get that extra cash from the auction than it would be to worry about some credit, because they're going to have to build it up again anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. All right. Juan, yep, good point. Okay, so Charlie, I think we certainly worked you hard tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hope you guys learned something.
I think some things is probably more appropriate. 100 or 2 things you managed to cram in there for. So fantastic. Awesome. Guys, grab Charlie's email out of the chat. We will wrap it up officially here. So I will say, start to say goodnight. Traction RIA. Remember, next month, what was it? Saturday, the 3rd of December. If you're in the DC area, anywhere within striking distance, even a couple-hour drive in. There's only 2 of these Home Depot facilities in the entire country. One's way out on the West Coast. We've got the one on the East Coast, so it's a nice special event that they're going to, provide breakfast and everything else for Traction members to see the design center with all the basically all the awesomeness. If you're doing any sort of rehab or refurbishment for your own home or your rentals or rehabs you're working on, you'll get a real sense of what's out there and what's the current style and design wise and everything that the Home Depot can offer you, including our fantastic discount and rebate programs that we've cut with them is really, really great. So RSVP for that, go to tractionrear.com. You'll see the event. And with that being said, we have a record of who was here. So I will give you your stamp of attendance, which is good. So if you have your frequent attendee card, fill it in with this date. We could obviously confirm it since it's electronic. Recording. Yeah, we're intending to put out this recording. I've had a lot of you ask for it. I think the easiest way is I've just once I have my team get it rendered and loaded, usually takes a day and a half or so. We'll get it up on the web and get it out there because I know I certainly want to watch Charlie's presentation again because there's just a lot of note taking and a lot of ideas and awesomeness in there. So we will get that recording out. So awesome. All right, gang, for November 2022, it's Tom Zeeb with Traction RIA signing off.